All right, Raz, are you ready to get started?
Ready to go.
Awesome. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to our webinar on From Excel Hell to Tableau. We're excited to have you here today, and we wanted to talk to you about how do you move from those big Excel files to a modern BI tool like Tableau. But before we do that, we wanted to quickly introduce the company that we work for, Curious, and then introduce ourselves. So Curious is a global data and analytics consultancy firm. So we have roughly 3,000 consultants working worldwide. But wherever we work, we make sure that our clients are able to use the data to their fullest extent. So everything we do is aligned with business objectives and how can data help our clients achieve those business objectives. And here in the US, we have a great team with a mix of more strategic skill sets. So that are those are questions around data strategy or data analytics roadmaps and questions around data governance or change management, and people with more applied development and delivery skill sets that are able to actually deliver great BI solutions, great data warehouses, advanced analytics solutions. And we've been doing that for over 22 years, and through that we've uh, gathered a lot of experience in, of course, modern BI tools like Tableau. So we're also a Tableau Gold partner, and if you're doing that, you also get used to working a lot with spreadsheets and Excel. So this, of course, at the bottom is a little bit in jest, but we are more than used to seeing Excel spreadsheets and knowing how to move and transition those to Tableau. And I know Raz can attest to that. So that's the short about Cures. And then who are we? So maybe Raz, you can introduce yourself first, and I'll take it from there.
Yes, thanks, Joost. My name is Raz Nistor. I head up the data science, CPG retail sort of sectors of Kiris. I have worked on many enterprise BI end-to-end sort of projects. So happy to share our experiences here and what we've seen in the industry today.
Exactly. Awesome. Yeah, and my name is Joost Zandvliet, and I'm a senior data strategy consultant here at Curious. I've been with Curious for roughly 2 years now, and I have the pleasure of working with clients on a variety of topics. So everything from data strategy, so understanding where clients want to go and and what do we need to do to get there, to things like data governance and change management. And I love doing that. I love figuring out those intricacies and figuring out the challenges that our clients are dealing with and how they want to use data to move forward. And very often, as we're talking about those things, clients bring up these big Excel files that they are still using in a lot of their analyses. So today we want to indeed share some of our experiences, and we'll first talk about like the problem itself. So why is Excel still so widely used in finance, and sort of what is the problem? Because that by understanding the problem, we'll be able to better understand the solution, and how do we move from our current solution to the current Excel solution to a new and better solution. Then Raz will give us a real life example of what it means to move from Excel to Tableau, and what that could look like and what are the benefits that you can expect. And finally, we'll give you some hints and some tools to move from your current solution to a modern BI tool, and sort of what are the 5 things you can do right away. And of course, we'll have some time for questions and answers. So if you have them, you can just use the chat functionality, the Q&A functionality, and just put in your questions, and we'll be able to answer those at the end of our presentation. Okay, so when we look at Excel, like why is it still, what is the problem of Excel? I think the trick here is that Excel is basically too flexible and too usable for its own good. Everyone knows Excel, everyone's used to using Excel, but that's also its downside, because typically what we're seeing is that um, it's the starting point for a lot of analysis. So people start using Excel for a simple question, and they might want to be able to track, okay, what is our projected sales for this year and how are we actually doing? And you want to just simply look at a couple of regions. And then over time, this initial document gets gets sort of add additional data added to it. It gets additional dimensions, so we want to look at it from a different product angle. It gets more like forecast included in it, and the calculations used within that Excel file also get more and more complex. So basically, people tend to start to add complexity as over time as this Excel file is used. And it makes sense that Excel is the sort of default, because it's the sort of lingua franca of analysis, because everyone knows it, everyone is able to read a spreadsheet, and everyone understands how to use Excel in its most basic form. But the issue is that as we're adding that complexity, it sort of turns into we're dependent on a specific Excel file, and there's a lock-in effect, because often this knowledge is self-contained, so it's tacit. So one or two individuals within your organization know about that specific Excel file, and I'm pretty sure that everyone on this call has right now in the back of the mind their own little version of their own organization's version of this document. And that's not great, because there are some sort of basic downsides to using Excel. So the first and foremost, it breaks often and easily. So it just simply changing one cell can uproot an entire Excel document, and then a person spends a lot of time fixing that problem. At the same time, it's slow and inefficient. So oftentimes these Excel files take a lot of manual effort to update, to maintain, and it can easily take a week for data to be turned into an insight and be shared with a senior manager. And then once we are there, it's very inefficient to look at an Excel file and figure out, okay, what are the sort of the insights that we want to take away from all of this? Finally, it's difficult to govern that Excel file. Basically, it often gets shared over email. Someone might take a copy of it and start their own little version of it, and within no time we have sort of different versions sprouted all across the organization. Plus, it's difficult to restrict access to potentially very classified information you don't want everyone in the organization to know. There's also no real, there are ways to validate some of this input, but it's tricky in Excel, and people are very creative in trying to uproot some of these more complex Excel files. So there's also oftentimes there's a lack of data quality. I don't know if that sort of corresponds with your experience, Raz.
Yeah, I definitely think that's right on the money. There's so many processes ad hoc processes that have to be developed by individuals around managing these Excels that end up running really large organizations at times. Mm-hmm. That I think each of these four categories is right on the money. And when things work, they work. May not be in the best state, but when they don't work is often when we see a problem, or when we try to add some new analyses or try to do something new. And the first point about breaking often is definitely true. I would also say there's usually a few individuals associated with managing these Excel, so there's also like a single point of failure at times that puts a lot of pressure on the individuals and the companies to keep these reports going.
Exactly, yeah, and this is not the intention to declare the death of Excel, because that's not true, and I don't believe in that. But it's about figuring out what processes are suited for Excel and which processes aren't, because we often see very business critical processes being run in these files, and that's definitely something you don't want. But the key takeaway here as well is that these might be the problems, but what we're dealing with as well is people have spent a lot of time investing, either emotionally or simply time investing into these Excel files. So moving people away from this type of analysis also can be very tricky. At the same time, everyone is used to analyzing or reading a spreadsheet. So moving people away from that is also very difficult, because basically the entire culture and structure of your organization is used to analyzing these insights. So that's by understanding, okay, how did these things come to be? It also becomes clear that it's a large part, it's a human challenge, and that's something that we'll need to solve for. But before we do that, we want to give you a real life example of how do you move from this Excel file to Tableau and beyond. And Raz, you can talk a lot more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Yo. So we'll just show a kind of um, like real life kind of workflow and stream of how we move some reporting into Tableau. The example is going to be based on financial reporting for, like, say, a retail sales or any kind of organization, really. We're focused on financial departments who have a lot of analysts and a lot of Excel sort of being ground out. And this could be even, across all sectors. I mean, even in financial services, we've seen a lot of, like, obviously Excel reports being used to sort of drive performance and analysis. And I think throughout this transition, we want to highlight, what was the starting point? Joost mentioned and touched upon some of the issues. We want to highlight some of these benefits to see them live in action here and see how we can not just like go to a version in Tableau that gives you, I think, a few key added sort of abilities. So for example, the ability to like really poke around and slice and dice your data on the fly, that's not something to be taken lightly. That there's a lot of insights that can be gained from being able to answer business questions, dynamically and on the fly. So that's like a great thing of BI tools in general, right? And we'll see how that looks like in Tableau. But we'll touch upon like what you can do beyond just normal Excel, like beyond the skill levels of the analyst, how you can easily get to something like forecasting, for example, to predict what your next few months or years are going to look like, going beyond Excel capabilities, and all of this sort of wrapped around a framework just by nature of the tools itself that I think has to force you to institute some process controls and governance. And that's like the key, I think, benefit for a lot of organizations, that it becomes, something managed more centrally by the organization instead of like locally by a few individuals. So we'll start with that. And what I'll do is sort of walk you through an initial Excel. So as we jump between screens here, please bear with us because we have to sort of stop and share individually each one. So here's an example financial performance report for a company. Here it's like geared towards like retail CPG, but this is the type of report in the finance department that we've seen across a lot of our clients. And these reports are used to sort of understand and drive sales performance. So companies in retail and CPG are focused on selling their products, and they have certain commitments they've made to their shareholders and to their executives that they're going to hit certain targets, and these types of reports just track how we're doing in given time periods, and if there's any gaps. They're very common. We've seen these in financial services, for example, on how traders are doing, or sales performance of the sales teams in financial services. And it's a very common type of report that gets generated and distributed quite often. So we use this as an example to drive and realize it in Tableau and sort of drive the message from how we can gain not only insights, but more control over the process as well. So what typically happens, we got to connect to some like system of record, some transactional system of data. Could be, we've seen system like, SAP, for example, may hold all your transactional data. It could be Essbase. A lot of finance departments use that. It could be, whatever. Typically, the analyst or the person making these reports will connect to that data and pull in a sort of view like this. Looks a little bit messy, but they populate a data tab, sits somewhere in the back end of the Excel, which here contains some dates, some information about the products, like what type of product we're selling, where it's selling, what state or division, and how many units and how much revenue we made. And also key here is we'll also have like some form of financial plans that we're going to track against. We call this the operating plan, the budget. But this is like, what we promised to shareholders that is going to be our target that we're going to hit. So every month, every state and every product has an associated target for sales with it that we're going to hit. And these types of reports are constructed in such a way, essentially, to tell us, how we're doing versus our plan. Very important to hit our plan, but then also where's the sort of type of gaps that we're having. So let's take a look at this. So using this, the data tab in Excel. So remember, the first point of failure here, the breakpoint, is somebody has to populate that. Sometimes you get fancy and there's like a macro or maybe a little Visual Basic script that runs and sort of populates it.
Raz,
Oftentimes it's
you are probably not sharing your Tableau right now.
no, I'm still in the Excel.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so somebody has to, populate this tab essentially, right? And the way they do that, sometimes copy and paste, so you can make mistakes with that. It's just a manual process that has to be kicked off. So we don't like that. So that's one point of failure. And then you can, populate tables or pivot tables like this. All of these cells are sort of driven by formulas based off that data tab. And what you do is track performance, how we're doing this month, how we did, last year's month, where's our operating plan and sort of the difference between them, color things in red or green to sort of draw the eye to areas that need attention. So for example, I could see year to date, we're actually off our plan in total by about 26,000, sort of 26 million actually, because the dollars here in thousands, $26 million. We're off our plan by about 2.4%. And as the CFO, I'd kind of want to know, where are we off plan? What products are lagging? What can we do to sort of mitigate the loss? And how are we going to finish the year? And this is, the really big question we want to sort of get to. What can we do to sort of understand where the gaps are and mitigate the loss? So we have other metrics here apart from just delta and percent comparisons. Things like, to hit our plan, year to go, sort of how many more units or dollars do we have to sell to actually hit our plan? And what was, at this point in time, which was August 2019, what was our actual, performance based 1 year ago in August 2018? How did we do the year to go back then? And you can see, like, for example, given like our performance last year and what we need to make up this year, we got to grow by about 7% over what we did last year for this product category of TV 55 inches. And overall, as a company, we sort of have to do about 16% better of what we did last year. And this is great. There's a lot of insights in this. I could read this sort of, people who are used to reading these Excels look around sort of at the numbers and make a few phone calls and zero in on the right products or sort of the right divisions to focus on, and it's not an issue. But it's pretty static, and there's a lot of points of failure throughout this process. So let's realize this in Tableau and see what it enables in both an analysis side and also going beyond Excel. So let me just stop sharing here, and I'll bring up the Tableau version. So everyone here on the call can go sort of poke around and access this. If you go to Tableau Public, which is public.tableau.com, search for Keras, click on the one the logo that looks like this, the round logo like this, and you'll get to our sort of Tableau site. This is what an analyst, a user, a consumer, an executive would see if they sort of log into a Tableau site. They would have all these applications here ready at their disposal. We can organize it in various ways. The first one that we have is essentially a landing page or a table of contents of all the things that we could showcase. And while we do things like marketing and sales analysis, supply chain optimization, today we really want to focus on this financial sales performance. And this type of report, again, is fairly pedantic, but is very popular and often used like month to month, quarter to quarter, to track performance of the company over time. So when we load that up, we get a first view. What are we seeing here is essentially a more visual, dynamic, and some might call inspiring sort of presentation of how the company is doing versus various operating plans or performance metrics. So the first thing I see is the same numbers. It's telling us, your revenue, you're down like 2.4% off your operating plan by this year. That means, I could see even in the months that we lagged in sort of January, February, June, sort of dragging us down versus our operating plan. I could see the plan here in the background that we're expected to have pretty big months in November, December. That makes sense for my product or sector categories, which looks like is electronic products like TVs and cell phones and things like that. They have big months around the holiday times due to the shopping times around Thanksgiving and the holidays. So I could see that we're down off plan. I know I need to make sort of this much money off to hit my plan, and I need to grow by 16% versus what I did last year. So that information is all there. but it's so much more visual, and I could sort of see, okay, which parts of the country are lagging, which product categories are lagging. So if I was interested in why, you know, the Mid-Atlantic region is lagging so much, I could just, with a single click, sort of focus on that area. I know we're lagging our big categories. They're really focused on selling TV 55 inches. They had a terrible start to the year. So I know I need to make some phone calls and see what we could do to bump up our top seller, which is 55 inches in this category. Also, as a CFO, because the data is so layered in here, you know, I can present it in various ways. So oftentimes we change the plan throughout the year. I could have like an LE2, which is like a latest estimate. You know, maybe after Q2, we like change the plan a little bit. So I can measure performance relative to that instead. I could look to see how we did maybe just in volume, not dollars amounts, but just in volume, and see how we did in that, or even compare it to, for example, last year. So because all the data is underneath the hood, I could really layer in a lot of analysis and expose that versus, you know, sort of these static views in Excel. And I could expose that via toggles and switches and all kinds of things like that. So that's already a key added benefit. One of the other things we can do is, because the data is all tied together here underneath the hood and everything's dynamic and interactive, I could start to ask the question of, okay, like I know I'm in August right now. I'm down 2.4%. I know I got to finish the year off. I got 4 months to go. You know, how am I going to do based off my performance last year? So let's change the point in time. Everything right now is up to this date, but let's go back to August 2018, 1 year ago, and see what state the company was in then. Very hard to do in Excel, but very dynamic here on the front end. I can see we're roughly, you know, down 3%. That's pretty cool. I'm about, you know, just doing just about as well as I did last year. I could sort of see which products and divisions were lagging. And if I wanted to see how I finished the year, I could just move it to, you know, December of that year to sort of see how do we finish overall. I see that, you know, overall we didn't hit our plan. Last year we were down by 4.6% versus our plan, and I could see which months were sort of lagging. And we had a pretty good December, but November was actually a bit abysmal. And if I click on that versus last year, I could sort of get a sense of which divisions and which product categories I need to focus on. So here's where good analysts and managers start to take this level of insights that they can expose with a few clicks here and turn it into actionable items. So what's the first thing to do? I know I had a bad November this year. I don't want to have a bad November. It was down like 10%. I know Mid-Atlantic region sort of did well. Let's focus on the other regions. My next biggest one, South Atlantic, I could click on that and sort of see, you know, what were their gaps. They really fell down. They're down 14%. Looked like it was primarily driven by TV sales and gaming console sales. What can I do to mitigate these gaps? They're going to start to use this knowledge, start making phone calls to managers or regional directors in these areas and start to say, look, we got to get TV 65-inch sales up. They're going to start to plan campaigns, promotional items to sort of drive sales. That's how we've seen good, you know, essentially sales managers and executives use these point and click abilities to build conversations and use the data as ammo to sort of drive, you know, action items within the organization. They know what this means and how to sort of change this into a positive result if they primarily just understand where the gaps are. So the first benefit here is just the, you know, engaging interactive abilities around, you know, BI tools and Tableau in particular to expose and you know, compact all this data together and make it very dynamic for you, I think is a, you know, a very big value add for a lot of organizations above static Excels. But then the next thing we can do very easily, because this is built into the tool, is ask, you know, I sort of know what I did last year, but what's my forecast going to be for this year? And there's forecasting available in Tableau. I don't even have to work that hard. So I know I'm in August. What am I forecasted to do this quarter, these last few months of 2019 versus what I did based off a time series forecast that I can build? And you see that here in this chart where the orange sort of background is the plan, and then the blue line is our actual sales. And then for the months that didn't happen yet, for these upcoming months, we built an actual financial forecast. And this is our expectation. It looks like we're actually gonna do quite well above our plan. I have the actual numbers down here. So for these key month periods, I have the actual forecasted values that we could communicate, to our finance department, to the CFO, set expectations, say we're gonna look like we're doing pretty well. This is at company level, but because it's in a dashboard, I could very easily sort of change it to focus on a particular state, maybe California, drill in on that and sort of set expectations and views specifically for that. So generating forecasts on the fly dynamically, using that to sort of understand where products or markets will end up by the end of the year using this time series forecasting, I think is a really huge value add where you just, it's much harder to do all of that. And certainly in Excel, especially dynamically like this for every region. So here we see a situation where just the reporting nature of Tableau itself, I think, is a great value add. Dynamically clicking around your data, being able to derive insights at single point and click type question and answer flows is amazing. But we could go beyond Excel. We can layer in far more advanced analytics. We could layer in forecasting. We could go beyond the capabilities of Excel and perhaps even beyond the capabilities of our individual analysts quite easy here. So that's just technically, I think, great value adds for this type of conversion. But what we sort of didn't mention and didn't showcase too much is what I really think is the value add. And I'll just highlight it briefly, which is the process we have to build around maintaining this type of reporting via the nature of the tool itself. That really adds value to the organization in terms of governance, data quality. You're taking something that was managed locally by one individual or a few individuals, moving it into a centrally managed sort of tool stack with Tableau, maybe some back end to it that gets the data ready. When you do that, just by nature of that process itself, forces organizations to come up, manage, and have far better process management and governance around these types of applications. So that, I think, is something that alleviates the single point of failure roadblocks and some of the other issues that Joost mentioned. So that, I hope, encapsulates sort of like a good example of what in the current value or current state of Excel is to what we could have in something like a Tableau. We have these dynamic, engaging reports, the ability to go beyond the capabilities of Excel, and just by nature of the tool stack, standing like something like this up will automatically force you to sort of build in better governance and process management flows in the organization. And to highlight some of that, Joost is going to continue talking about how we actually realize this and what are some of the most important aspects of making an initiative like this come to life.
Exactly. All right, thanks, Raz. That was very good. So I'm just going to continue on where we left off, and this is indeed what Raz has been talking about, and he hit everyone like every point here like on the head. It's the UI and the way of analyzing this information is simply miles apart from what Excel can offer you. And some of the things that Raz just showed us right now would have taken hours, if not days, to simply do in an Excel document. There's also some other areas here in terms of speed, reliability, and efficiency, and being able to govern your insights. Tableau is indeed, by simply the merit of putting it into the application, will already create a lot of processes and governance around it, but it also allows you to certify specific data sources. It allows you to restrict access to data that you don't want everyone to have access to. And what I mean by easily shared insights is not just that it's easy to get to the insights, it's also that we're looking at the sort of a common definition. We don't spend time having the conversation on, oh, where did you get this information? Why does this number differ from your number? It's a very good way of looking at the same information. So how do you move from where you are right now to Tableau, and how do you reap some of these benefits? Well, the basic answer is it requires a combination of factors. So the first thing that I always hammer home is business alignment. So everything that we want to do needs to be aligned with a business purpose. We want to understand, okay, what questions are we trying to answer and what problems are we trying to solve. And that will culminate into a strategy that covers areas from people to process to technology. So it's comprehensive, and it contains things around change management because we're simply changing the way people are going to interact with the tool. They're used to analyzing Excel documents. They're used to looking at spreadsheets. They are very comfortable doing that. So if we want to move them away from that, it's going to require time and effort to do it. We also are going to we're going to need to build the right technical infrastructure. So we need to have the right tools, capabilities in place to make sure everything is working as we expect it to. And we need to have the right organization to make sure that what we're building is going to stay aligned with business needs. It's going to be fit for purpose. But that makes it very big. So what we tend to do is we don't try to do everything all at once. We're trying to focus on what is your biggest worry right now. And when I mentioned in my sort of more strategic engagements, when I start talking to clients and at some point we stumble upon that big spreadsheet that's causing a lot of headaches, that's when I know I've struck gold, because if I can solve that problem, we're already adding a lot of value, and it's a great starting point for sort of as a catalyst for further change. So if you have something in mind while we were talking about all of this, I would recommend to start there. So how do you do that? So there's basically 5 steps that we can go through. One is start with the end user. So the first thing is we need to understand what the person that's currently using the Excel file is trying to achieve. What question is he or she trying to answer? What purpose does this current Excel file serve? Like what business process is it supporting? That's the essential first thing. And what are the current challenges for the end user? The second thing that I like to do is solve what I call solve the technical challenges. So basically, I break this Excel file down into 2 components. One is the backend. We need to have the data ready for ingestion into the data application like Tableau. We need to have it sort of a flat file. That's relatively simple. There's a lot of great tools out there. There's right now what you can see here is Tableau Prep. So Tableau has recently improved their prep tool to easily onboard a number of Excel files, being able to join them, combine them. It's really simple to get the data in the right place and then start messing around with it. And that brings me to the second point is when you look at an Excel file, it might seem daunting, but the way I like to look at it is that there are different components to it. And every Excel is basically a combination of calculations for KPIs, there are data points, there's dimensions in it, there's all these different components. And if you just break all of those down into separate components, you can identify, okay, what is the type of analysis that we need to build in Tableau that will serve the person's objectives and serve its business process, but keep the same level of detail that Excel is currently offering. And the third challenge is guiding the user through the change. So what we typically do here is a couple of steps. First is creating awareness of why this change is happening. So people need to know that we are going to simply move from Excel to Tableau for some of these analyses that we're doing. Secondly, is they need to understand why, like what's in it for them. How is this going to help them do their job faster, easier, focus on and more time on their analytics. So we need to build that desire for change. The third step and fourth steps are around building the skill set and the knowledge to be able to use the tool to its fullest extent. And the fifth step is reinforcing that change. So we need to have the right support structure. Typically, we talk about like Tableau user groups, office hours. Those things are really, really powerful in building the right change within the organization. And Tableau has developed something called the Tableau Blueprint, which we'll go into a little bit more detail later. But that's a great way to basically understand what are the different things that I need to do to make Tableau a success, Tableau adoption a success within my organization. once we've done that for our first like headache Excel file, we need to celebrate the success, because if we are able to move that away from that basic Excel file to Tableau, that's already a huge win. And we need to sort of use that as a catalyst for further success, which is about expanding and enhancing the use of Tableau within your organization. So how do you do that? Well, we typically look at the Tableau Blueprint, and this overall what you're looking at right now is the Tableau Blueprint. So it's a combination of sort of 3 different streams preceded by a more strategic phase beforehand. So Tableau says it's about agility, proficiency, and community with the right analytics strategy and the right governance in place to support all of that. So within Keras, we have our entire offerings sort of dovetail this blueprint. So we have our analytics strategy where we identify where are you right now, and where do you want to go, and what are the different improvements that you need to do to get where you want to move from where you are right now to where you want to go, and who are the people who are going to do that. Then it's about infrastructure. So we need to put we need to deploy the solution. We need to put the right monitoring and maintenance in place. So these are like things around Tableau server or Tableau online, dependent on where you want to go. And then it's about change management. So Tableau sees these as 2 separate sort of tracks. We like to see them as a sort of a different steps in between. So first it's around communication. So that's that awareness piece that I was talking about. Then it's about engagement, so creating the desire for change. From there, we need to educate and skill up, and we need to train people. And once we've done that, we can start measuring actual adoption. Are people accessing the dashboards? And there's all these metrics that we can pull from Tableau. And then it's about reinforcing the change. So we need to put in best practices. We need to put the right support structures in place. That's where the Tableau user groups come into play. And finally, we also add data governance to make sure that the entire solution stays aligned with business needs, that we have the right sort of inroads into the different business units that are using the Tableau environment. And from there, it's basically sort of a blueprint for success. And if you want to know more, we are very happy to talk about that. But that's a really good way to move from that individual first Excel file with the 5 steps to a broader rollout within your organization. So I think the key here is the key takeaways here are moving from Excel to Tableau. It can be very powerful. I think what Ras showed is a very simple Excel document can be something so powerful where people can access and analyze it in different ways. But a couple of the key challenges that we need to solve is that we need to understand that it's a very human challenge that we're solving for. So to use that, we have the right tools in place, and all this Tableau Blueprint is publicly accessible, and we're also very happy to talk to you about it. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Raz.
No, I think that's a great summary. I think just the key points are it's more than technical and standing up. You can't just like give people a tool. There's a lot of process and change management that has to go around with it. That's the real key to success. We've seen Tableau implementations fail. When you just like give an analyst Tableau and say, here, this is the new way of doing things. It doesn't work. You really need this full picture here.
Exactly. All right, so that brings us to the questions and answers. So let's see if did we get any questions, Raz?
We got some in the chat here. So good question is, what are some common pitfalls with these implementations or migrations?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good one. So I covered a couple of these. So focusing on the human aspects is very important. But one example I typically hear is sort of if you build it, they will come, and it makes sense because Tableau is such a powerful tool that you would expect that once we implement it and we have a great dashboard up and running, that it automatically people will start using it. And unfortunately, that's not the case. People are just they're creatures of habit. So if they're used to analyzing it in a certain way, then they're going to continue using that Tableau dashboard. So it key thing here is to make sure you take that end user on that journey of moving them from Excel to Tableau, and make sure you give them the right change management support to transition from Excel to Tableau, because it's not going to be a pool question. It's going to be a question around pushing, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that sometimes we need a little nudge to make sure that we actually use something that's better for us.
Great. Another question that came up is, if I was looking to build a Tableau project or initiative, where can I go to get some examples of ideas and templates to display my Tableau skills? Maybe I could take one. I think there's a ton of examples online in the Tableau community. You could just Google for various things. Like if you want to do marketing analytics, tell you marketing analytics Tableau, they have like already a lot of sort of examples, white papers, and Tableau templates. You can use our Curious Tableau public site. So that's something you can go to and sort of get examples of things we've worked on. We do a lot of embedding advanced analytics into our workbook. So doing a lot of what if analysis, playing with optimizations, that type of thing. So those examples are all there, spanning across sales, marketing, digital media, all kinds of sort of segmented examples. I think that's also a good place. And just the public Tableau public site in general has so many great dashboards and initiatives, particularly now around COVID data sources and a lot of analysis. So it's Tableau public, I think, is a really good go-to resource in general.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really powerful component of the tool. It's often not something you often think about, but the community is very, very strong, and a lot of the questions you will have once you start developing on Tableau are probably already answered somewhere online. So you can also go to those resources as well if you have specific questions as you're going down this journey. Okay, whereas I also think one of the questions is like, what are some of the examples of the ROI or gains that are sort of typical when you move from Excel to Tableau?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a tough one to answer, even for us. So as a consulting firm, we like to try to measure, the impact and value gain in a lot of these projects. And oftentimes, I mean, the data is the same, the numbers are the same. So there's a lot of gains that we mentioned maybe in the interface and the intuitive capabilities around the actual analysis part. But does that translate into, money or bottom line in some way? It's hard to measure that impact, to be honest with you. I can't say, oh, sales performance dashboard, is going to increase your performance by 3%. Even if we sort of saw these gains, it would be tough to attribute to a dashboard of this nature. What we have seen is a lot of gains in time. So imagine freeing up analyst time, which sometimes are, like few days a month spent just building reports, if not more, and doing these sort of number crunches in Excel. Imagine alleviating all of that time and the value saved over the course of a year, for example. So one ROI is that we save, for example, when we do total migration projects or sort of get people onboarded from complete Excel to Tableau, we saved up to like 50 sort of full-time days per month is sometimes some of our ways that we track, and that's like 50 like not sort of like all one analyst, but 50 days a month, which is more than a month of savings in terms of people's time. That's one added benefit. And then just by nature of the tools, we have seen, for example, this performance tracking type of dashboards just be used in weekly review meetings, weekly or monthly or quarterly business review meetings. Just not having the managers to prep all that data is hugely immenseful, and they just kind of use one dashboard to drive those meetings is really neat. And understanding where the gaps are and filling those gaps do translate into dollars, but the action there, the ROI is gained by the individuals themselves and the organization who know how to look for those gaps and take the actions to sort of address them, and giving them that ammo to have whatever conversations they need to have in the field to sort of mitigate losses is really the key to the ROI component. And
Mhm.
the dashboard helps with that. I think it helps get you there, but it'll come down to, your people being able to use it and understand what's the value add and how can I use this in my day to day. That's the real ROI.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's like the one viewpoint I always have as well is moving that. So simply the move from Excel to Tableau will require you to dig into your data in more detail, and it will require you to become more comfortable in handling data. So that's a big aspect of maturing in data, and achieving data literacy within your organization is also going to be helped by simply doing this, going through this exercise. So it's also an important component of maturing as an organization to be able to set you up for to be able to sort of leverage things like advanced analytics and data science, which a lot of companies aspire to. But sometimes you need to take sort of an intermediate step, and I think this is a great example of that. Okay, do we have any other questions left? I know we're a little bit over time, Raz.
I think that's it for now.
Okay. All right, then I want to thank everyone who joined us today, and I want to thank you, Raz, for your time as well. And if anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to continue the conversation, of course. Anything to add there, Raz?
Nope, just thanks everyone for your time. Continue to be safe, and we look forward to hearing and working with you in the future.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.